It's the Germany PPE, the Germany PPE, with me, Mr. G. Okay guys, let's start with what's going to be on the actual paper. Now this is in chronological order, but not the order they will appear on your exam. So first thing we need to think about is Kaiser Wilhelm's problems up to 1914. So we looked at the growing desire for democracy in the German population, the growing population as well, and the rise of socialism. And these were the really big problems he faced, that desire to reduce the Kaiser's power for people to have more of a say in government. Then we're going to look at lives during the First World War for the exam. So you need to look at the impact during the First World War. Okay, remember we said about affect, not effect. So things like the political instability with all those socialist groups trying to change government, social differences between the rich and the poor, factory owners getting wealthy, workers getting poorer, and the impact on the economy, essentially Germany becoming bankrupt due to things like loans to their allies, having to borrow money to fight, or just paying out all these war pensions for widows of soldiers that are killed in the war. Then you've got the Treaty of Versailles, pay particular attention to ways in which it was fair or ways in which it was unfair. So fair in terms of aspects like Woodrow Wilson's 14 points that he tried to apply to it, unfair particularly how the German people reacted to it. And then lastly, the problems of the Weimar government. Now we said there's 5, but I want you specifically to focus on 2, which is hyperinflation and the invasion of the Ruhr. Nice. Now, let's check out the exam questions. Okay, so these are the different types of questions you're going to have. Notice that on the Germany paper, there are actually 6 questions, as opposed to all the other papers where there are 4. Let's start with the interpretation section. How are interpretations A and B different? Why are interpretations A and B different? And which interpretation do you consider to be the most convincing? This one's the trickiest one. That's why it's worth 8 marks. In question 1, I'm given 2 interpretations. You can see both interpretations are based around pickles. The question for this will be something along the lines of, how are the interpretations different about pickles? The key thing with this question is it is asking you how they're different, which means you need to spot the differences. And remember, we're looking for 2 differences between them. So, differences we may have spotted. 1, this shows a very normal shiny pickle. This one shows a pickle wearing some sort of rat with a battery-powered bazooka, rocket launcher, or something along those lines. That's how they're different. How they're different. Question 2, slightly trickier, but still only worth 4 marks, is why they are different. Now you must remember this question is asking why, not how. So the things that you have to consider are the provenance, which is the writing bit. So we're looking for things like, remember damn it, date, author, motive, ideas at the time, and the type of source. For example, with this question, the types of the source, we might say, 1 is from a popular cartoon, the other is from Wikipedia. This is designed to entertain, this is designed to inform. One reason why they're different is because of their purpose and their audience. Okay, so remember though, we have to come up with 2 reasons why they are different. Now question 3, this one's flipping tricky. You've now got to explain which one you think is more convincing. It doesn't really have anything to do with the provenance, okay? So you don't need to really think about the date. The focus needs to be on the content, okay? And you have to use your own knowledge to explain why one is more convincing than the other in finding out about pickles. Now, I would say interpretation B is more convincing. I need to give 2 reasons for that. 1, I might say that pickles resemble a small cucumber. Interpretation B clearly resembles a small cucumber. I might also say that pickles do not use battery-powered rocket launchers. Therefore, interpretation B is a much more convincing interpretation of a pickle. You'll need to do this, of course, by looking at interpretations about Germany, not pickles. Next up, we have an easy 4 marker. Describe 2 problems for. So, in this case, we might say, describe 2 problems for the Kaiser before the First World War. Now, this is a simple question, so you only need to make 2 fairly short points. So, you might make point 1, okay, growing population and industrialisation, which is one problem, okay, connected to a second problem, which would be the desire for democracy and the rise of socialism associated with that. You don't need to write too much for this, maybe half a page tops. Next up, in what ways were something something affected by something something? Worth 8 marks. Let's go. Right, so this one's fairly simple. They'll ask you how a thing affected something else. How you respond to that, using obviously lots of your own knowledge. One way in which people were affected by the thing, and the second way in which people were affected by a thing. Okay, each one, detailed paragraph, easy 8 marks. Let's do this! Okay, last question, the 12th marker. You're going to be asked which was more important for something, which was more significant for something. And you're going to be given 2 options, okay? Now what you must remember with this question is you must explain A and explain B. So don't just talk about one of them. Then you must explain which one was more significant. So for example here I say A was more important than B, because remember as well, you don't just re-explain A. You've got to say why A is more important than B. Okay, so if, for example, this was talking about 2 different problems for the Weimar Republic, you'd have to say why one was a bigger problem than the other. Okay, guys, so remember, revise all of this stuff. It's not too much. Do not panic about your Germany PPE. Keep revising, and you'll be